All right, ladies, welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. Today, I am featuring a woman who really models the Proverbs 31 woman. And that's not her talking, that's me looking at this incredible bio of my guest, Leah Carowin. Carowin. I'm so sorry. I knew I botched that up.
It's okay. Um,
Leah is a committed follower of Christ. She's the CEO of Life Matters International and the founder of Transformed Living. And she's a frequent speaker at women's conferences and marriage retreats, both here in the United States and around the world. In addition to all of that, as if she could do anything else, do you see where I'm going with this Proverbs 31 thing? Okay. Leah is a consultant, an executive coach, an ordained minister, and multi-certified leadership, marriage, and life coach. She sits along with me on the board of reference for ICCI, the International Christian Coaching Institute. And put simply, she is a pioneer, and she is committed above all to keeping her priorities according to God's ways. So, Leah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you, Judy. Wow.
Oh
Big
my
shoes to
goodness.
fill, Proverbs 31, right?
Big shoes to fill. That's right. And none of us quite make it.
No.
Certainly couldn't even approach it without Christ. So,
Right.
all right. Well, I thought there's so many different ways we could go today. This is really going to be a girl talk type convo that's probably going to be all over the place. But I want to start with your prolific and impactful work during the last 3 decades. Can you just, in a thumbnail sketch, kind of get our listeners up to date on all the amazing things you've done?
Well, I want to start by saying I am shocked and amazed more than anybody about how my journey has happened these last several decades.
Mm.
I'm not as overly ambitious person. I know that's probably hard for people to imagine, but I am persevering and I am driven in a sense of when I get something or a direction from the Lord, Katie bar the door. There's no stopping, right?
Oh,
And
that's
what
good.
happened was it started after I got married to my husband, and he had a dream of being a professional speaker. So I had no idea how that would happen, but God literally opened one door, then the next, then the next, then the next. Before I know it, I'm building a speaker's business and marketing my husband and all over the nation and world. And then people were saying, well, we would really love to uh, and apply what he's saying from the platform. Could you help us with that? And so I started a consulting group because that's what was needed. And so we hired multiple consultants and I started a consulting group. And that was incredible and life changing because again, I went from behind the scenes in marketing and scheduling and all the different things to learning how to actually go to the business itself and work with the CEOs and help implement what my husband was talking about. Just so you know, our entire focus has always been the people side of things. So I'm all about how to create an environment in which people can thrive. And so is my husband. Where can we go to build teams? How do we help people thrive? And then from that, had an opportunity and was asked to build the Congressional Prayer Caucus Foundation, which was basically, we built about a network of about 1,000 government leaders who were committed to protecting religious freedom. About 100 members of Congress and leaders in every state, actually in all 50 states. Passed that off to a congressman about a year ago, transitioned out of the leadership of that, which was wonderful. And through the thread through all of that was a ministry called Transform Living, which was my passion throughout the whole thing. If I could have, I probably would have just done that, which is the desire to help women and now men, because my husband's involved as well, but really recognizing and engage and embrace God's ways, God's original design, and the biblical principles, the truths that transform us, that transfer from person to person, that transcend culture and time. Those are the things that are true for everybody, everywhere, all the time, and helping really women understand and grasp those things and become more fruitful in their families, with their relationships. And that's my heart's desire. So that now I get to do full time. Now I'm all about transform living.
That is so awesome. All right, I'm going to land there then, hon. You talked about the truths of God's word that transform time and something else, culture maybe.
I
Uh,
Yeah, I said transform, transcend, and transfer is what I call them.
Okay. So what are some of those truths? And most of my audience, many are in corporate, but most are entrepreneurs or would be entrepreneurs. And as one, you know what they grapple with, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what truths can you, from your perspective in your work, can women really lean on when it comes to the truth of who we are and who God made us to be?
I'd say there's two that jump out at me right away that are two of the most significant ones in my life that really transformed how I think. And one is the belief principle. What you believe to be true, you do. And I don't know how long I thought if I said the right thing or did the right thing, or tried to present it a certain way, if I did not believe it in my heart, that's what people heard. People heard what I believe, not what I say, not what I think, what I believe. And so when I began to explore those core beliefs, because so many things were just assumptions, I'd never really wrestled with it. It wasn't so much a core belief as it was an assumption I made that I'd never really examined.
Mm.
That is something that is transformative when you really start to look at your life and look at the areas in which maybe it's going off the rails, you're having constant challenges.
Mhm.
You have to be honest and really take a look at what you believe. There's so many people out there that are saying they believe one thing but living completely differently, and you what you believe you do.
Yeah.
The second one is priority, and that was the one that really was a key for me, which is God makes it really clear in his scriptures that he is to be our number one priority, and not just serving him, not just doing things for him, knowing him, having a relationship with him, having him be the Lord and master of our life. That's number one priority. And there isn't anything that goes above that, not anything, not husband, not children, not goals and ambitions, money. And the second one is if God has given you a husband, for my situation, a spouse, a wife, that God has made it very clear in the scriptures that you're to engage in that relationship in a way that is second priority. And then if he is so kind as to give you children, that's your responsibility to train and to educate and teach. And so often I think and then fourthly, I talk about all the rest, the community and the church. And it's so easy for us to mix up our priorities. I see women constantly
Mhm.
putting their church or their community or their work before their husband or their children or the relationship with Jesus. And it's going to go sideways at some point. It's going
Yeah.
to go sideways. And women who put their children in front of their husbands, and that's going to go sideways. I mean, there's so many ways in which we get our priorities messed up. And I multiple times in my life, I was faced with very difficult decisions about things that looked so appealing and so wonderful, and wow, it could be really financially great. But I realized my kids would suffer if I did that, or my
Mhm.
marriage would not thrive in that situation, or my husband or the Lord, I wouldn't have time then to really, have with the Lord that I have now. So the answer was no. And that's hard.
That's so good. I know. I left the practice of law when I had my third son. And actually, the very moment that I realized, that I got the news that I was pregnant with my first child, I remember pushing away from the desk and I looked up to God and I said, "Thank you, Lord, for this baby." And it's like, I was a first year lawyer, but I was like, right away, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about this. I care about this baby growing inside me. And, I was so blessed to be able to step away for a time, to raise the kids because that is my priority. That is my biggest accomplishment is raising them in the Lord. So I really appreciate that. But in that hierarchy, where does the business fall?
Right. I know. Everybody's always shocked when I talk like this because whenever I'm invited to go places, they expect me to talk about women in leadership. They expect me to talk about all the big things. And I start talking like this, they're like, it doesn't even really make sense to me. How do you do that? Because what people misunderstand, and let me go a little bit further with what I call the pick approach, which is principles, instructions, and convictions. This is something that's core to the transform living. What I teach women is that a principle is God's word, and what we add to it, so often we add instructions, we add our convictions to it, and it gets all muddied. And so the minute I talk to you about priorities, women start adding all kinds of things, going, I don't have the ability to homeschool, I can't quit my job, we can't afford it, I have to work because whatever. And I'm like, I never said you couldn't. I never said you didn't. I'm actually making no judgment as how to apply that principle to your life, your husband, your marriage, your situation. All I'm saying is that is a priority. That is a principle that God has designed, and it's up to us to embrace it and then say, okay, show me, Lord, how to apply it with my family. And that's the place I think we get so mixed up, is that we lead with instructions. All women that are Christians should be homeschooling their kids, or all women that, have a marriage or whatever should be at home and they shouldn't be work. I mean, there's so many shoulds that we put first
Mhm.
before we embrace the principle and say, okay, Lord, how and when do I apply this now?
Mhm.
So yeah, business for me, I just really every time said, Father, how do I do this while keeping your priorities? And that was always just the question for me, as if I can't keep your priorities, then then I don't think the answer is yes. But if you show me a pathway in which this actually lines up with the priorities in my life, then I'll consider it. And every time they did, and I've worked my whole life, my whole marriage, sometimes two jobs. I mean, I love working and have always worked and raised my kids at home. And I was at home raising my kids my entire life. So I was always present with them, always there, but also always building a business or something also at home. And I know it's
That's
kind of
so
crazy, but it was
I
fun.
find that reassuring. I mean, well, let me say this. When I was working outside the home, I felt that there were those that work outside the home and the stay-at-homes. And I felt like back in the day, the mid 90s into the early 2000s, I felt like we were at odds. There was a lot of judgment, it seemed.
Yes.
And so when I stayed home then and left, working to stay home, I felt like I didn't belong with the ones that worked and I didn't feel at home with the ones that always had stayed at home. So I'm glad to see that. I think, especially with COVID, like, we all realize we're in this thing together. So let's not judge, because I do believe that God put in me a desire to work outside the home. Like I'm the type of person like you. I think I need to be busy. I love to be busy. I love to serve. And yes, it makes life kind of crazy, but I think that's kind of how I'm wired. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the goal, is again going before the Lord and say, one of the things that is so key is understanding who you are, what your gifts are, what your calling is, what your talents are. I mean, I think again, it all goes back to asking the Lord, seeking the Lord. How did you make me? How did you make my family? How did you make my husband? What do my children need right now? Really, the place that we go wrong is when we put our ambitions, and this is what I always ask the ladies, is just say, listen, talk to me about your motivation for working. Talk to me about how that's going to impact your relationship with your Lord, your relationship with your family, how it's going to impact your children. And if they hem and they haw and they go, well, I don't care, or all the different things, I'm like, yeah, okay,
Oops.
well, you might want to explore that just a little bit. Again, no judgment, because we're all in process. It's all a journey for all of us. But my question is still the same. I'm not going to back off of it. But
Mm.
that's what I love about principles, is that I don't have to judge you. I don't even have to come at you and tell you how it should work, what should look like. I can just give you the principle. You wrestle with it. You go for it. You either embrace it or don't embrace it. It's okay.
And that's part of our work, like in my coaching for my clients, and from beginner on up to, two, three, $400,000 a year, working to seven figures. It's
Yep.
always, what do you want? And even at that level, some women say, gosh, I don't even know, because I'm asking, okay, where are we going to be here in this business in 2 years or 5 years? And some look at me and like, I don't know. And so there's a part of it, I'm curious if you agree, then we'll move on. I feel like so many women, even, I don't want to say aggressive, but assertive, confident women, they they seem hesitant to say, I decide this is what I want, or this is what God has for me. Have you seen that? Like, almost like they need permission to just, like, come on, tell me. What do you think?
It's difficult. It's difficult. I coach a lot of women, and many driven type A, I call them high D because I do a disc personality assessment with them and all that. And it's difficult because they're attracted to me because I'm that woman. And I had a difficult time. In fact, that's where Transform Living came, is because I looked around and I was so confused. I thought, I feel so confused and guilty. I'm a follower of Jesus. I love him. I want to honor him. And I'm looking at the scriptures and it's talking about meek and gentle and quiet and all these beautiful things and definitely look like home. I better stay at home and all the things. And I was so confused. And it really wasn't until I was able to go, oh my gosh, God actually designed me this way. And I did have a little issue with him. I'm thinking, okay, why did you make almost everything in me that is typically male characteristics and attributes and put it in this woman? This is a problem for me. But when I was able to call it good, when I was able to say, oh wait, that's how you design me, I have many of the attributes. And let me just tell you a little sidebar here. This is going to add a little bit of icing to the cake. Okay, Rolf and I, my husband Rolf, we do this personality assessment. He's 6'4", 220, big guy, football player, loves Jesus. So we do these personality assessments. And then, they give you the examples of a like a famous person that you are like, that are like you. Mine, no surprise, was General Schwarzkopf. General Schwarzkopf, his Mother Teresa.
Oh, wow.
So here we are married. I'm General Schwarzkopf. He's Mother Teresa. He's this big guy, but he's sensitive. He has many of the attributes you would typically call feminine. I have the ones that are typically masculine. Now think about that scenario and us trying to have a marriage, and we built business together for 15 years. So we worked together, built a business together. We're married, raising kids with that mess going on. That's how Transformed Living was born, because we were like, we're going to end up in divorce. We're not going to make it if we don't find some answers, because we are breaking every mold. This is not working, and we're forced every day into figuring out how to do husband and wife and business together. And I was the business CEO type, and he's the husband. And how do I be a wife to this? I mean, it was a mess. And that's when we had to get clarity as to what God said. And you know what? God did. He showed up and said, I love how I made you. It was purposeful. And all my scriptures, everyone still applies. Leah, you are still the wife, and you are still to honor and submit to that man. Rolf, you love her like Christ loved the church.
Yes,
and you be the head of your wife.
Yeah.
But
so that was your work.
But also understand that I have callings and giftings, and you bless each other. And that's what we learned to do. We learned how to encourage and bless each other, that we would both succeed for all that God had for us. And that's the path.
That's so great. All right. This is good. And I love, like, we are sisters. I mean, we are very made similarly, and maybe that's why God brought us together. So let's talk about some money, honey.
Okay.
Because Christian women a lot of times struggle with money, and I think, is it okay to be ambitious? Is it okay to have these big goals? Be they financial? I mean, I've never met a woman, even seven-figure woman, who said she started a business to make the money. Like, of course, that's a part of it, but she said, I love people. Every single woman I've ever spoken to, and I've worked with hundreds of women, I want to help people. I want to, move them forward. So talk to me about your money story. If you had any stories to overcome, I said, this successful entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, I just want to talk about that, because one of the things, and I'm sorry I keep talking, but I just want to set this up.
Yeah.
One of the things you said in the email to me, getting ready, you said, making money was never the goal. And I just kind of followed God's lead, and the money was always there. So with that, by way of background.
Yeah, that is absolutely the truth. For me, money has not been a big issue, in the sense of, ever since I was really in junior high or high school, I had a real confidence the Lord would always provide. The Lord would always provide. And I remember reading the scriptures early on And I did go to seminary and got a degree in Christian theology, and really wanted to study that too, and where that all fits. And the scriptures that talked about the love of money, and all the scriptures about how problematic money is, I took that to heart, realized money is not the issue. It's the love of money that's the issue. It's putting it before Christ. It's it becoming your security rather than Christ your security. And I remember saying, Father, I resonated with Paul when wait, was it Paul who said, don't get, I think so. Don't bless me more than, no, David. I'm sorry, David. I don't want more than that I would become proud, and I don't want so less that I have to beg, right? I mean, it's sort of that mentality. I realized, Lord, I want to be just completely dependent upon you, and you know how you made me and what I need or don't need. So I'm going to leave that up to you. Now, that was something I had to practice over and over and over when we have been on the top of the world with money coming out of our ears, and we have been at the rock bottom where the bottom fell out and we're 100,000 in debt. And how are we even going to pay our bills? We've done it all. We are entrepreneurs, right? So we've got all the ups and the downs, and we're pioneers, and we've started and we've done all the things. So that's a real thing of being able to have peace and joy. But it comes back to what you believe. Do you really believe that God is your provider, and that God loves you, and that God will only allow you on the journey that is filtered through his love and his provision, and that he is sovereign, and the sparrows can't fall from the ground, that he doesn't know every one of them? It comes back to that. And if you can get to that place, then really money is really not a factor. But let me just say, I thoroughly enjoy having a bunch of money in my bank account, because then there's a lot more options. I mean, let's just be realistic. That gives you, but it's not something for me to hoard. It's something for me to use as a transaction for all the things that I want to do out there. Yeah. So yes, I like having plenty of money to be able to do all the things that are in my heart to do.
Yeah, I love that too. I have donated more this year than ever before, and we are sitting here on August whatever it is, 16th, and I praise God for that. Part of it is I've increased my gift. I tithed, but now I add more. Plus, like you say, the more you have to give, and so that's a win-win all the way around. But for the woman out there who now is sitting confused and like, okay, wait a minute, so is it okay to have big goals? And I'm just curious, like, let's go back to one thing you said. I am with you on the power of belief, like belief of identity. Who am I? Am I a real CEO, or am I really just a glorified employee who works her butt off, right? Am I an expert, or am I a newbie? And the way we really believe we are in our core, that's going to show up in everything that we do inside our business. But on this point of goal setting and entrepreneurship, what would be your thoughts and advice to a woman out there who up to this point is like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel godly to, make a goal of $250,000 or $500,000 a year or more?
To be perfectly honest with you, those for me, I kind of go, yeah, that it's a little like there's nothing that is just okay, how do I phrase this? So many things that we wrestle over, that we think are right and wrong. We put them in the right and wrong category, the good and bad category, the moral and immoral category, that don't belong there. They're neutral. They're nothing. They are or they aren't. Make a goal, don't make a goal. Go for this job, don't go for this job. Make $250,000, don't make $250,000. But those things in of themselves are not right and wrong, moral and immoral, good or bad. They just are what they are. And so many things belong in that category. The question always needs to come back to, Father, am I pleasing you with this goal? Am I honoring you with how I am treating people, how I'm achieving this goal? Am I keeping my priorities in order as I go after this goal? Is my husband on board, or am I fighting him every step of the way? Those are the questions we should be asking. Is God being honored and blessed? And And I think what so many women say, well, they say, well, I'm not sure if he is or isn't in this. And that's where I kind of go, if you're not getting, if it's not causing you guilt, and you're not having uh, a lack of peace, and there's joy and peace, and it's a decision that seems to be right with everybody, then go for it. And guess what? If your heart really is to honor the Lord, he is really, really good at changing our direction and changing our goals. And that's the advice I would give them, which is, if God changes things, if things happen, if circumstances happen and your goals don't happen, are you going to fall apart because your goal became more important than God to you?
Wow.
Or are you going to be at peace and go, it's okay, the Lord has changed. The Lord did not allow this to happen. And what do you want to teach me through that? Believe me, I have had goals and things where the Lord said, actually, no. And the result was failure. And my answer was, okay, it's not because I'm a failure. It's not because I didn't hear you. It's not because I'm wrong. I don't, well, until I ask you. I mean, I may be, but wrong, and I may not have heard you, but I'm not going to jump to that conclusion. First, I'm going to say, okay, what are you doing? What are you saying? What's different now? What did I learn? Okay, go, let's keep going.
Wow.
That's the question.
That is so good. I love how you've framed that, and I'm sure that's going to be a clip that I have my team cut up, because that is just so good. That money, of course, is neutral. You know, it's just whether your goal is 5,000 a month or 50,000 a month or 500,000 a month. It's a neutral thing. It's just a circumstance, you know. And I love how it's like always goes back to Christ. It's that simple, and we muck it up and we make ourselves overwhelmed. And if you listen to the podcast, you know I'm all about deciding. Decide I'm not going to be overwhelmed. Decide that I'm going to hear from the Lord, and I'm going to pursue Him until I do, you know. And until then, nothing's gone wrong. I'm learning. I'm on this journey. So that is so good. All right. As we wrap up, I want to chat about the upcoming conference. So,
Yes.
listeners, we have, and I mentioned this before, coming up September 29th to October 1st in Texas is the first ICCI conference. It's called In Focus and Empowered. So I'd love for you, Leah, to tell our audience kind of your perspective and your involvement in the conference.
Well, I am so thrilled about this conference, and I'm thrilled about ICCI, International Christian Coaching Institute. It is the first of its kind like this. It's the fastest growing Christian coaching organization for good reason. They are doing it right. They're doing it well. They're doing it with integrity. I'm on the board, so I love the people that we're working with, and my husband and I will be there for sure. We're actually doing an intensive pre-conference. So people that come, they can actually do the first course of our Transformed Living coaching certification, which we're really excited to be able to offer to people. But the speakers that are there, the relationships that are going to be there, the coaches that are there, every single one of them is so excellent in what they do. I mean, really, it's the who's who in the Christian coaching that are part of this organization. And anybody that's interested in, whether it be coaching, whether it be just becoming trained to be more equipped, even if you want to become more equipped at whatever you're doing, pastoring, mentoring, discipling, leading in your church, in the Christian realm, what you're going to learn at this conference is going to equip you like no other conference that I'm aware of. So I really encourage people to be at this conference. And Rolf and I are super excited. And we want to meet you. We want to meet everybody that's coming. It's going to be fun.
Yes, it will be. And I know I'm doing a workshop that I'm really excited about, and I have a booth there. So I look forward to seeing everybody. So I would venture to say that I have a lot of clients and a lot of listeners who are coaches and consultants, but even, as Leah said, even if you're not a coach, if you are a Christian entrepreneur, you will benefit from this.
Yes.
Through the networking, through the connection. There is no place like the place where Jesus Christ is proclaimed without apology, you know, just being ourselves, who we are in Christ, coming together in unity. So, and I have a discount code. So as you're listening to this, wherever you are, okay, if you found me on a social, you know, DM me or reach out at Judy Weber Co. wherever you are, and I will give you that code. It'll be my joy. Well, as we wrap up, what is there First of all, anything on your heart that you want to talk about that we didn't? And then, second of all, do you have anything you'd like to offer our audience as kind of like a freebie, get to know you kind of thing?
Let's see. Well, I would love for people to go to transformliving.org if they're interested. That's our website. And we're working on a lot of things it through Transform Living. Not only can people become a certified Transform Living coach, and let me just say something about coaching and what you just said. When I was a consultant working with CEOs and business people and Fortune 500 companies, there was no question what I learned in my coaching certification courses was every bit as valuable as any learning or training that I got. I mean, it taught me how to actually have excellent conversations with people and be able to engage with leaders across the nation. So I can't even say enough about coach training and understanding those concepts. But anyways, we not only have that, but we through Transform Living, we are going to be launching a self-study, which is sort of an introduction to the Transform Living concept. You'll learn about the PIC approach, you'll be belief principles. Some of these other principles are part of that. But we also are working on experiences that women and men can do in through their church in Bible study settings and community group settings, because Transform Living really is an approach, but a body of information that we've been building for about 18 years now. And not only that, it's the thing I love about it is it's like ICCI. The power of it is also in the community. It's not just brokering knowledge. It's women doing life together, women teaching women, men teaching men, understanding, wrestling with the things that God is teaching us, and then being transformed because we're applying them and having accountability and support and encouragement as we apply them into our lives and into our marriages, into our families, into our businesses. So we really love just what we're doing now, and would love it if people would come to the booth, come to the conference, come to our booth,
Yeah.
come to our workshop, go to our website, find out what's there, and we will be launching some different things as we continue to grow. So would
Okay.
love to connect with people.
Super. And one more thing before we get off. So besides your website, transformliving.org, and we'll drop all that in the show notes, where is another place online where they can find you? Like, are you active on social anywhere? Where would you direct them?
Well, it's funny that you say that. Not yet. I actually have multiple pages all set up, and I've been set up for a few years. Sorry to say, but I just left the directorship, the director of being the executive director of the foundation that I told you about a year ago, and I've taken a year to just slowly get myself. And much of my life, I always had a team and somebody else doing all those social things for me. So now I'm back at square one, having to think about social. So we will have a Facebook, we will have Instagram, TikTok, we even have a YouTube started, but none of it is populated yet. So don't go to social yet. You'll
Okay.
wonder what in the world. Very soon.
No,
I'd say probably within a few months.
no worries. Okay, so we will make sure to go to the website. And like I say, I can't wait to meet you and give you a hug. I'm a hugger, so I'm sure
Good,
I'm going to hug you when I meet.
good. Me too.
Well, listen, thank you, Leah, for sharing your beautiful words of wisdom here on the show. It has been a huge blessing. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Judy. I look forward to meeting you in person.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you as always for listening. If you haven't yet left us a review, would you please take a moment and do that now? It really makes a difference, not to necessarily get me high on the ranks, but that rating and review helps me and my team to know that we are doing things that matter, doing things that are impacting you. So it means the world to us. So as always, reach out to me on my website, judyweber.co/podcast. If you scroll down, you can leave me a voice note and offer a topic that you'd love me to cover, maybe a guest, or a question or some feedback, because it really matters to me. So once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.